Hello, my name is Emma Matasovich. I'm president of PMBC, and I'm here with visiting assistant professor Josh Bailey, who is teaching MUCH 440 Historical Development of Jazz this semester. This semester, we are introducing some new professors in lieu of seeing them walk through the halls of Crane. Um, Independent musician, producer, arranger, and educator, Josh Bailey is a freelance drummer and percussionist who can be seen performing regularly in the metropolitan area of New York City, as well as touring both internationally and nationally. Josh is currently administrative faculty at NYU Steinhardt as the special programs coordinator and adjunct instructor of jazz studies. Professor Bailey, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit and why you're excited to be at Crane this semester?
Yeah, you did a pretty good job right there. Yeah, sort of as my bio explains, I'm a professional musician, drummer. Drums is my instrument. I do a lot of music directing and arranging as well. Academically, I did my master's at NYU Jazz Studies and was one of the lucky ones to stick around. And I've been teaching there since 2014. So I've been teaching and working for the jazz and music department at large since then. And yeah, I mean, Crane, I've actually been to Potsdam on tour with some alum that maybe are so far graduated that the name recognition might not be there, but I work pretty extensively with Drew Coles, Dr. Coles, as well. And that was sort of my introduction to the school. So if he sees this, thanks, Drew. Yeah, and it's been great. I mean, it's a really, really motivated and interactive student population. You guys are so outspoken and proactive about learning, even a subject that's not your focus. None of you are jazz majors, which is primarily what I'm used to teaching, is people that have decided to major in jazz. So it's been really great so far.
So, how does like teaching at two different schools work? They're probably very different schedules, very different, like you said, student motivation levels.
Mhm.
Um, like, what's the like differences there?
Yeah, I mean, the actual operational side is pretty much the same. Unfortunately, it's all remote right now. So that's the same for both schools. But yeah, the student population is similar in some regards. In other words, in our class, you're all different majors, all different instruments, or areas of focus. Same thing at Steinhardt Jazz Studies. In other words, even though I'm a drummer myself, I'm not teaching just the drummers. I have all of the freshmen jazz students. They're all majors.
Mhm.
So in terms of like developing content and a curriculum around that, I'm sort of used to teaching multiple backgrounds of student types. And then it's really just a matter of trying to cater that towards what I think the students will end up using this information for. Like, for
Yeah.
example, in our class, it's primarily music ed majors and music business, which is
Mhm.
sort of a different lens to view the historical development of jazz than it would be for a jazz performer,
Right.
and NYU is all instrumental performance.
What is your biggest like interest in jazz?
Um, to be honest, I've said this in our class, but it's worth repeating. Jazz tends to be made up of people that like to break the rules, and jazz on its surface tends to defy whatever expectation people put on it, which I think is pretty reflective of musicians at large, regardless of your area of focus. But also it's very topical to the direction I think the world is going in. I totally feel like it's synonymous with the energy of young musicians, which is why I think it's maybe a little more popular in high school and even college for students that don't know what direction they want to go in, but they know they love music. It's a
Yeah.
really good outlet for that because there's room for expression and curiosity while not fully knowing everything you want to do. It's a very small version of a room for exploration, which is what college is to me,
Yeah.
So
And kind of like jumping into like a different point, like what are some of your interests outside of jazz?
sure. Yeah, I mean, most of the work that I do professionally is actually with singer-songwriters, pop musicians. I do a lot of, not a lot, but a good enough amount of film scoring and video game scoring, like remote recording and things like that. I've been lucky enough to get introduced to people in those worlds and have made some contacts. I've been doing a lot of things as it relates to that. And, it's all the same lesson, really. I mean, jazz is just one example of an industry of a larger music world, and skills that I've learned through jazz have helped me in some ways, and skills I've had to learn outside of all of my education and teaching experience, I was forced to figure out because of being placed in positions that I wasn't expecting to be placed in, you
Yeah,
know? So,
for sure. Um, so that's kind of like what I had. Is there anything else that you want to share with Crane or the students of Crane or the music business students?
yeah, well, for sure. I would say that I'm sure this is kind of sort of geared primarily towards music business
Yeah.
students, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say um, musicians, especially talented ones, project a confidence that can be perceived as arrogance. Don't let that rattle your, speaking directly to music business students,
Yeah.
don't let that rattle your equally hard-earned level of preparation and knowledge you've attained, because there's many things that super proficient musicians will be too proud to tell you that
Hmm.
they don't understand, which is usually self-promotion, marketing, all of the things that your area of focuses will become. They're going to be too proud to tell you they need help to do that. And I think music people in the business side of things should be equally as confident and as applauded for the work you're doing as the people on stage, because we all know the 45-minute show you're doing, there's probably days and hours worth of work to get to that point,
Yeah.
and it's pretty crucial. So, I don't know, sometimes I think not everyone's a performer administrator, not everyone wears both hats. For those that just do the business side of things and you may not end up performing in the future, I think there's a huge need and room for you to feel confident in pursuing that as passionately as a performer would, you know,
Yeah.
because all those things that I've had to teach myself, and I've been fortunate enough to play with some people that have their own success, and then that helps me,
Mhm.
but it's that there's so many unknowns for someone that goes to school for performance, and the gaps in that education are usually filled by people like yourselves,
Mhm.
so super, super important.